Welcome to another episode of my summer video series. Today we're diving into the exciting world of effective classroom setup and seating arrangements. Okay, maybe you don't think of the classroom as a particularly exciting place, but that's where you're wrong. A classroom doesn't have to be a boring space with rows of desks. Let's try to forget about the traditional concept of a classroom for a minute. And first, let's just imagine an empty room with blank walls, no furniture. Got it? Okay, now we can start. It's all about creating a learning environment that maximizes engagement, collaboration, and which fosters inclusion and caters for different students. You know, the way we set up our classroom and arrange the seating can have a big impact on student learning and behaviour. Let's explore some practical tips to create an effective classroom setup. Tip 1. Consider classroom zones. If we have this big empty space, we can divide it into functional zones that cater to different learning activities. We can have designated areas for whole class learning, small group work, independent study, and classroom resources. Clearly label these areas to guide students and optimize the use of space. Now, I get that you might not have enough space for all these zones, especially if you have a lot of students. So you may need to be creative with the use of space. In the last video, we talked a bit about classroom dynamics. We can switch up seating to make it easier for students to work in different interaction patterns. If the desks are easily movable and students can move them themselves, try to come up with some different layouts. In fact, get students to do it. Here's an activity. Why not make this a project for students in the first week of term to redesign their classroom? They can come up with different layouts for different activities or dynamics such as group work, pair work, and individual heads down work. Students can draw plans for each layout and give them names. That way, when you need students to move the desks, you can just call out turtle tables or two little ducks or backs to backs or whatever names you decide together. Tip 2. If you can, you could create a cozy nook or a calm corner with comfortable seating. It doesn't need to be very big, but having a safe space for students when they need to calm down or if you need to distract a child from some inappropriate behaviour. However, make sure that there are rules in place for the calm corner. For example, one student at a time and staying as quiet as possible. Tip 3. Organise materials strategically. Keep the supplies and materials that you use often easily accessible to students. Use labelled boxes or shelves to store and categorise these supplies. This promotes independence, it saves time, and it keeps the classroom tidy and organised. Finally, a word on seating plans. Some teachers like to have a seating plan which determines where students sit. I prefer a more flexible approach, but seating plans can work well for short periods of time or when students have formed cliques and they always sit with the same friends, or in classes where relationships aren't so good. And of course, the seating plan should depend on the type of activity. If you have students work collaboratively, you may want to form the groups yourself to ensure a balance of different skills and abilities. And of course, think about the needs of each individual student and make sure they're sitting somewhere where they can see and hear you and the other members of the group. or whoever it is that they need to interact with. Remember, effective classroom setup and seating arrangements can transform your learning space into an engaging and student-centred environment. By implementing these tips, you'll create a classroom that fosters a positive and collaborative culture. And also, mix it up sometimes. Experimenting with seating arrangements keeps things fresh and it encourages students to make new friends. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to come back next week for the next video in the series Be Your Best Teacher Self.